Hello, everyone. How are you on this glorious, glorious day? This is Maverick Power Hour Coaching, and I'm Bernadette Boas, and I am with Bullfire Coaching. If you're just meeting me for the first time, and I usually can talk. Trust me, I usually can talk. But welcome. We do this every Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. It started off as our Powerhouse Mavericks training that we would do over on our Facebook Powerhouse group. And that popularity and that growth caused a lot of people to ask me, well, Bernadette, do you ever just kind of provide us an opportunity to come and ask questions and get some guidance and coaching from you directly in any other place? And so for 2022, we switched it up a little bit, and this will be your Maverick Power Hour of Coaching. So if you ever have a question or a story or a challenge that you're dealing with, and you're out there at any point in time, whether it's on our Facebook page, Shift to Riches Today, in our Facebook group, Powerhouse Mavericks, we would love for you to join us. We're a very tight-knit, engaging, collaborative, supported, and even at times you can self-promote yourself in order for all of you to be able to grow your businesses and your lives. And then, of course, out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on our Bernadette Boas page. Where else? Oh, and our YouTube channel, which is Shift to Riches as well. So we are broadcasting right now live across all of those platforms. So anywhere you might come across this live stream, feel free to join in. Feel free to leave a comment. If you do have a question or a challenge that you're dealing with, post it in the comment section. There are certain places where StreamYard, which is where I'm streaming from, will ask permission for you to authorize that I see your name and or even your profile image. But regardless of any of that, just make sure I get your question or story, whether you give them permission or not. Leave it in the comment section. I'll be also looking across the platforms as we go, and let me know if you have a question or you just need advice or tips on something. All right, and we do have a few. So let me recap what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll get into each one of them. And again, I'm here so you can be posting your own question, and I will get those addressed as well. And if I'm here the full hour, yippee! And if we're not, yippee! As long as you're being taken care of, okay? So let's see first. Okay, well, not first, but here are the questions that I have thus far. How to capture leads from appearing on a podcast. Great question, actually. Great question. And then Peter asked, how does one go about publishing a book? That's a loaded question, but we are going to address it. And then we're going to talk about how to get someone to engage with me when they just won't. This is more so in the business environment, how to get someone to engage with me when they just won't. So those are the questions we're going to be talking about. And if you have anything yourself, again, please leave your comments across any of those platforms, and I will be sure to get to them as quickly as possible. All right. I just realized that one of my, I don't know why, how one of my tabs would close on its own, but just realized that it did. So let me just make sure that that is opened up so I can see all of you. All right. So Vreni asked, and she was hoping to be on. You know what? I'm going to move that around. I'm going to move that around in case she is able to jump in and let her kind of get it firsthand in regards to the response to how to capture leads from appearing on a podcast. So let's just jump to Peter's question, and then we'll come back to that. All right. Peter C. asked, how does one go about publishing a book? Hey, beautiful. Great to see you. Thank you, whoever you are. I can't see, but let me know. But thank you very much. That put a smile on my face for sure. All right. How does one go about publishing a book? This actually came up in a client session when we were discussing kind of writing books, and more so he. And then, of course, I like to always use my life experiences and lessons learned and best practices. And so he knew I had written my own book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, and said, well, what did you do to go about it? Now, I'll have you all keep in mind that when I did do it, it was 2000. I wrote it in 2010, published it in 2011. So many things have changed since then. But let me just kind of paint you a picture. All right. So there are three different segments of publishing a book. There's what, some might call the formal publishing, which are those top tier publishing houses that are out there. So I'll leave it there for now. The second tier would be what I call hybrids, and I'll describe that in a minute. And then the third tier would be self-publishing. All right. So the top tier, which is formal publishing, those, handful of big house publishers that are out there, they are for, I'm just going to put it out there, they're for the very few. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't, submit queries and try to get a big publishing house to publish your book. But let me share with you an experience that I had, and I'm sure it stands up today. So I was going down that path. I was going down the path of sending out a lot of query letters. So be prepared for that if you are in the process of writing a book and or in that initial stages of wanting to find a publisher. A lot of query letters. All right. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you can find that perfect one. And so I was in the process of sending out query letters when I was advised to talk to this one particular marketing guru, publishing guru at the time, now retired. And it was recommended that I speak to him to get kind of like the real sense, the reality of going to the big publishing houses. And so I did. And this was the conversation, I'll never forget it, because I was walking back and forth in my backyard as I'm having this conversation, kind of getting very overwhelmed. And don't worry, it's not an overwhelming process, but what he was basically telling me, the first question he had for me was, do you have about $250,000? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I'm just trying to publish my little book. Like, what? And he said, well, that's basically what you need if you want to go to one of those big publishing houses. I'm like, okay, give me more. I don't understand. And he said, well, they look for a minimum run of your book of 10,000 units. And so what they'll also look for is, in order for you to get those 10,000 units sold, you, Bernadette, need to have at least 100,000 people in your immediate network, because they kind of estimate that you're going to be able to sell to 10% of that community. So 100,000, 10% is 10,000 units. If you don't have that, and if they were to take you on, if you don't have that, then typically you will be responsible for any of those 10,000 books that were on that run that did not sell. And at the time, the price of books was like $250. And so when you looked at 250 times, 10,000 is where he was getting his numbers from. And so that was kind of a good reality check for me. That was a really great reality check for me. It didn't stop me, mind you. It didn't stop me. And I wouldn't suggest it stops you from still sending out queries if you feel that that's the route you want to take. And we're going to get to that, to what goals and objectives do you have? And that will help you with your decision as to how to publish your book. So then I'm going to go to the far end and say, then there's self-publishing. And it is the normal today. It wasn't in 2010. It just kind of started, not even creating a swell. It was just starting to get, into the front of people's awareness is self-publishing. Amazon was just starting to create their own self-publishing arm, so forth and so on, but it wasn't the mainstream. And so I didn't want to go there because I wanted to be in bookstores. And at the time, I actually don't even know if it's today, but at the time, self-published books did not get into bookstores. All right. Now, one might say today into 2022, how relevant is that because of the, small number of bookstores? But, putting that aside. So I was like, well, wait a minute, this formal publishing and then this self-publishing, neither one of them is sounding like it's something that I want to do. And I'm thinking there's got to be what I called at the time a hybrid. There's got to be somewhere in the middle. So I went looking. And it turned out that I found a hybrid that basically they took care of, I would say, where the publisher has like 90% control over everything, that you're going to do. You basically write the script, but then they're going to, suggest edits, and they're going to give you a book cover, and they're going to do the marketing and promotion. Not actually a lot, but you don't have a lot of control over it. Self-publishing, you have to do everything yourself. In the middle at the time, all I had to do was provide a manuscript. They would create the cover. They would do marketing. They would do distribution. Now, to what extent is the big factor that you have to look into if you were to, kind of evaluate all the different publishing options. And that is the route that I chose to take, down the middle. And so what I told Peter a week and a half ago is that look at all the different types of publishing options. Even within Ball of Fire Media, which is one of my companies, I have an imprint because my book, Shedding the Corporate Bitch, is actually only one of like 78 titles. Take out corporate and you can put in Shedding the Divorce Bitch, Shedding the Overweight Bitch, Shedding the Being Single Bitch, whatever. So I decided that if I'm going to go ahead and not author, but have other people author their own versions of Shedding the Bitch, then I want to be my own publishing imprint. So there's a lot of different options that you have out there. And the self-publishing, as I mentioned, has grown to such an extent that there's some unbelievable, awesome options out there when it comes to you getting help and support and marketing and distribution, but at the same time, you doing it yourself. So it's not costing you as much as it would from a hybrid to a publisher. Because remember what I said, the formal publishers are looking for a minimum of a 10,000 book run. And you're obligated if you don't sell it. The middle publishers, the hybrids that I did, they even expect a minimum commitment to the number of books that you will be obligated to. My number at the time was 2,500 books. And so I was responsible to purchase at cost 2,500 books. Self-publishing pretty much is like on demand. Now, again, and I told this to Peter and I'll share it with you. Again, I haven't published a book since 2011 personally. And so you would definitely want to do your homework. But there, he wanted to really just understand what options are out there and what were some pros and cons through my journey in regards to evaluating that and making the decision that I made. If I were to do it again, I would probably do self-publishing because of the credibility, because of, how far it's come over the last decade. But again, look into it. Okay. Look into it. All right. He did, and I'll address this because some of you, if any of you are writing a book or interested in writing a book, he did ask me about my writing process and should he write a book. Now he was in the midst of writing a book, but he just wasn't sure if he was going to be able to kind of be all in and commit to it. And this is kind of what I would say to anybody. I think every single one of us have a story to tell. Every single one of us have something to teach. Every single one of us has something that someone else is looking for. Whether or not you choose to sit down and write a book about it, because trust me when I say it's not an easy process. It's not impossible, and some people can do it very easily. But when you're evaluating whether or not you want to write a book, you really want to think about what is the goal and the objective? What's the outcome you want from writing a book? Same question needs to be asked about the publishing options. And I mentioned that when I started the discussion on it, is, you choosing publishing, hybrid, or self-publishing, you have to ask yourself, what's my goal and objective? If your goal and objective is major exposure, major, influence, a major book, I'm sorry, not a book, a calling card, a business card, which many people use their books as business cards for, future business opportunities. Well, then a formal publisher and going down that track may be appropriate for you. If yours is just because you have a story to tell, and you want to share it with friends and family and community, and you're not looking for anything, bigger or grander, then self-publishing may be appropriate. So you always want to be asking yourself as you're making these decisions, whether it's publishing or even starting to write a book, is what is my end goal? What do I want to achieve? And this gentleman that I mentioned that I'd spoken to 10 years ago, after he asked me if I had $250,000, he said, what is your goal? What is your goal for writing this book? Is it fame? Is it revenue? Or is it a calling card? Because those three are legitimate goals that people have when they go and do anything, especially when it comes to content, creating content, podcasts, videocasts, books, speaking, fame, revenue, or just a calling card or a business card. So that finished the publishing, but going back to why you might want to write a book. Like I said, we all have something to say. We all have something to share. We all have something to teach. And there's always someone out there that would benefit from it. Now, that said, it's not an easy process. And therefore, you really want to be all in. You really want to make that commitment. And whether or not that's a book, that's a poem, that's a piece of music, that's a film script, whatever the case might be, a creative process of any kind really just takes, energy and commitment to doing it. Any goal really does, right? Any goal really does. So just ask yourself, so what is my goal and objective? What is the outcome that I want from it? How committed am I into doing the work and taking the steps I need to take in order to complete this? And then, one thing I told Peter, because he did not, I said, then go find the people you need in your circle as you're writing this book. And what I mean by that is, you might want a writing coach if you're not if you're not known to be a writer, whether that's fiction or nonfiction. Then get a coach to advise you on, what are the best ways nowadays to write a book. What is the formats that are really popular? What are the genres? So forth and so on, just to get some guidance on where you should focus your time. The other set of people you might, work with early versus later are readers or editors or copywriters, graphic designers. So, start pulling your team together early, especially for me, I would say from a writing coach and an editing perspective, that saved my life. That saved my sanity because I had her there as we went along. And actually she sometimes played, life coach for me when, all of a sudden I was getting stuck in a certain time period of my story that I didn't want to necessarily write. And she had to kind of pull me back and say, this is what you set yourself up for. This is what you wanted to accomplish. So it's just good to have that network of people. Plus you want those people that are going to motivate you and support you and hold you accountable as you go, whether it's family or friends or a professional, maybe a coach that you engage to keep you on track and to keep you to your objective. So get your team together, if you're deciding to write anything. Okay. And recognize that there will be highs and lows, but the rewards are tremendous. Even if it's not tremendous at the cash register, it's tremendous within yourself. That that even if it's one person, my goal and objective for my book was not volume. It was not quantity. It was visibility, but it wasn't quantity. And it was that if I could help one person with my story, just one, that would have paid for itself. So figure out what your goals and objectives are when it comes to writing a book, or even what you're going to do when it comes to publishing that piece of content. All right. And I had that one-on-one with Peter, so this is for all of you in that regard. Okay, I'm going to still skip over Vreni's question just in case she does have an opportunity to jump on, but we'll definitely get it addressed. And okay, so this next question, although everybody can relate to it, though. Oh, hi, Crystal. I'm just seeing your name attached to that comment. Thank you. I love shout outs that I look beautiful. So this next question did come from one of my corporate clients, and they were asking about how to get someone to engage when they're just absolutely not. And how many of you can relate to that, whether or not it's at work or at home or in your social life or in your, activity life. There are just some people that just won't engage for whatever reason, there is. And especially in business, both entrepreneurially and corporate, it kind of happens a lot. And so first, what I would suggest to anyone is you first want to look at kind of the dynamic of what it is that you're needing from this person, why you need it from this person, what is the value or benefit or impact, positive or negative, to you not getting them engaged. But the key thing is not about you. It's figuring out what's in it for them to engage with you. So especially when you're having trouble, this can pertain to conflict management as well. So if you're having a conflict with someone, how do you get them to engage? But I always will advise or coach someone to sit back and really kind of strategize on how you're going to approach this. And even if you're in a very kind of immediate reactive type of situation, maybe you come across them, all of a sudden to where you didn't have time for planning. Well, trust me when I say you still want to take a breath and you want to think. You want to intentionally be aware of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and try to pre-plan as much as possible if you want it to be effective. But we're going to set it up as if you have time. So sit back and just kind of, think about the strategy of what it is that you need and you want. But then what is it they need and they want? So in this particular situation, and majority of the situations in corporate, there are dependencies. One function has a dependency on other functions, and those functions have a dependency on you. And so right then and there is your first thing to look at and to use when you're trying to engage someone. It's what's in it for them. So if you're in this function, you have dependencies on this function, then figure out kind of what do they win or lose by not engaging with you? What is it that you offer or that you deliver to them or that you do for them that should they not engage with you, they're only hurting themselves. They're not hurting you. Now, obviously, there's some things that you're going to lose out on or you're going to win by getting them to engage, right? But they don't care about that. I'm just being straightforward with you. They won't care about that. They're just going to care about why should I engage? Okay. Now, this isn't necessarily even a conscious thinking process on their part. This is even subconscious, that they could be thinking that, I don't need to engage with them. I'm not going to waste my time with them. They have no value to me, blah, 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 blah. But you need to call that out. And that's the key. That's the second key, is you need to call that out. The first key was you need to figure out what's in it for them and, what do they need and want, and what the impact is if you, do or don't support them. The second thing is you need to figure out kind of what is that, not only what the benefit is, but what is going to motivate them to want to be engaged with you. Okay. So a scenario could be, Well, you would make their life easier. You would provide information, work, output that they need, that they want, that will benefit them, that they haven't even had before. Now you're coming with all these new ideas and these new opportunities for them that could benefit and enrich and make them successful. Okay. So you need to be considering all of that. And then when you go to them, you don't start off with like, I need something, because that's just going to cause somebody to put their, you know, defenses up and their wall up. You need to go to them with, have you ever considered or would it be beneficial for you to have X, Y, and Z? Would it help you, or give you, or work to move you along? So it's all about them when you approach them. And so now you most likely have their interest. You have not to say that they're all of a sudden going to like let their guard down, but at the same time, if you're putting it into what's in it for them, and everybody knows everything, everybody has a purpose, right? I mean, they know that you have an objective, and you know that they have an objective. So what our goal is to make it a win-win for everybody. And that's what everybody should be interested in. There shouldn't be winners and losers. There should be a win-win for everybody. So you can think about this when it comes to conflict management as well. Like if you have an issue with somebody, and I would say this is an issue when you can't get somebody to engage. But sometimes that's just because, someone just is so busy that they're not good communicators. They don't respond to your emails or phone calls. They, are always acting as if they don't have time, so forth and so on. And so it's not really a conflict. It's just a frustration. And you need to figure out how to get them engaged. And the number one way you're going to do that is to recognize what's in it for them and go to them with that first. And then you bring up how you're going to be able to do that, but you need something from them. You need support, you need access, you need information, whatever the case might be. But a lot of people have this issue of getting other people to engage with them. And that's simply because they're going at it as, what do I need? This is what I need. This is what you need to do for me. And they're not considering that, no, this other person has an agenda all of their own. And they have wants and needs and goals and desires all of their own. They're not really necessarily caring about yours. So how do you switch that? You make them important and make them valued and make them heard, and help them recognize that whatever you have is going to benefit them, and it's going to help them with their whatever it is that they have a motivation toward, or an agenda toward, or goals or objectives toward, whether it's personal or business. And you approach them with that first, and then you kind of weave in what it is that you need from them in order to accomplish that for them. All right. So go with a with them as a lead in is what I would suggest to anyone that's dealing with trying to get someone to engage with them. Now, another aspect I will bring up quickly in regards to this too is, and we're probably going to have a powerhouse training session on this, so stay tuned for that. But I think it's important. What I've been spending a great deal of my time with my clients on in the past couple months is really understanding different styles and profiles of the people that you're surrounding yourself with, and making sure that you are adjusting or adapting to them as to how do you get the most and the best out of those people, as opposed to creating more work and struggle for yourself. So let me give you a for instance. I'm a very, obviously you all know me. I am a very assertive, direct, don't beat around the bush type of individual. And yet I work with a lot of individuals that are more reserved, more quiet, more intentional, more thoughtful, and therefore oftentimes when the two of us come together, if I'm like, and I'm like the ball of fire, right? And then they are kind of like, whoa, all of a sudden they're just kind of totally taken aback. They're totally, put off. They're totally shut down. That isn't good for anybody. That is not good for anybody. So before I give you the solution, let me share a quick story. I had a boss, a mentor she turned into when I was in my mid to late 20s. Her name was Nikki. And I was a buyer, a retail buyer. And therefore, we were in lingerie. I was a lingerie buyer. And there was 5 or 6 other female buyers, and all different types of personalities, reserved, type A, all different types. Nikki had this unbelievable ability to adapt and to shift to each one of those women in a status meeting, for instance. So she'd be behind her big desk and we'd be all around her. I want to say there were 6 of us. We'd be all around her. And you could, like, her whole body and voice and cadence would change as she went from Annie, who was a French, at the time, a French woman, probably in her 50s or 60s at the time. I'm in my mid 20s. And she was very sensitive. And Nikki would adapt to her. Then she'd move to Gail, who was this fiery, New Yorker, who just, spoke her mind, didn't want a lot of stroking, and just wanted to be told what it is. And she would adjust, and her tone would change, and she'd lean in closer, to Gail. I mean, her whole dynamic would change, and she would do that all the way around the room, to the 5 or 6 of us. And I would sit there in awe at that. But I didn't know at the time. I wish I did. But I didn't know at the time how relevant and critical and powerful that would be as my life went on. But I never forgot it. I never forgot her and the way she handled and communicated and managed individuals. I wish I had learned it while I was in corporate and I was creating a lot of havoc. I'll just leave it at that. However, ever since I've been out on my own in 2008, 2009, doing a lot of the coaching consulting work that I've been doing, and needing to get the best and the most out of people, then her teaching, her role modeling has played a instrumental part in everything that I do, including my own coaching. So going back to the working with different styles. So what I would share with anyone as an add-on to that question about engaging is, even if you are out to dinner with family, friends, there's a waiter, there's a bartender, you're out on a pickleball court with a lot of different personalities. You're at work, even remotely, making phone calls, having clients that are all different personalities. The one skill, if you would focus on it, that would be absolutely instrumental in your success and your growth, personally and professionally, is to learn how to read people and adapt and shift your style to complement and meet their style. Now, I'm not referring to mirroring, if anybody knows about that. I'm not referring to mirroring. I'm just referring to, if you recognize that all of a sudden you're talking with someone who's very different than you are, has a very different, style, communication, so forth and so on, and you need to get the most out of them or something from them, then you want to meet them where they are. Now you would say to yourself, okay, well, they need to do that with me too. And you know what? You're absolutely right. But you can't control that. You can only control how you approach and how you handle what someone might bring to the table, so to speak. So If you could, learn that. Now, how can you learn that? Well, I had mentioned that I had been spending a lot of time doing a lot of that behavioral um, behavioral work with some clients over the last couple months, and there are assessments out there that would tell you what and how other people behave, how other people communicate, how other people like to be managed, how other people like to be engaged with. And what I would do, we're going 7, 8 years back, what I would do with my coaching clients when I brought them on is I would have them do a DISC assessment and I had my DISC assessment, and we would discuss them at the onset of our coaching. So they understood where I'm coming from and I understand where they're coming from. Now, I tend to do that more now through my own profiles and through my own prep work when I bring a client on. But at the same time, if you are ever considering, what can you do to be a better adapter to, and communicator with others, especially others that are different from you. So both of you, it's a win-win as opposed to a win-lose, but more so just because so you're as efficient, as effective and successful as possible, then consider, kind of delving into really learning how to evaluate, assess, or read others as you're getting into communication with them, engagement with them, just building a relationship with them. And leverage that so it is always a win-win. Take the lead in making sure it's a win-win for both of you. It is life-changing, and it has definitely, Nikki coming into my world 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and not really paying attention to it until, only 10 or 12 years ago, but what she's been able to do. And God rest her soul. She passed away a number of years ago. But I've never forgotten her, and I've never forgotten that example that she set for me. So just as a little side note there. All right. So Vreni, I'm not sure if you're out there or not. Vreni's out of Switzerland. So it's very late there right now. Fantastic new assessment is on the scene. Oh, is this Crystal? Yes, it is. Fantastic new assessment is on the scene. CBI. All right, I'll take a look for it. I will absolutely take a look for it. Thank you very much, Crystal. I so appreciate it. Love, love, love seeing you out there as well. Core Values Index, because it does all come down to values. It does. And I don't know if that's, exactly what the CBI assessment looks at, because there's so many assessments out there and they cover so many different things, like, your behaviors, your values, your qualities, your competencies, so forth and so on. And I think that's Vreni. Yes, it is. And so, if you're interested in it in any way and you just want some information in regards to it, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll send you. I don't sell these assessments when I need them, like for my clients. I actually go to the source and, kind of get them from there. So this isn't a plug, just something that if you want to really be efficient and effective in how you're relating to other people. So both, your job is much easier and more, successful, as well as theirs. And you're running into a situation like, I didn't have a name on this, that my client had in regards to getting someone to engage that didn't want to engage. Then learning how to read and understand other people's styles will help you tremendously. Okay. All right. Vreni's here. Woo woo. Shout out to Vreni. Shout out to Vreni. I'm like sweating. I don't know why. Anyway. Okay. So Vreni was asking, I'll read your question, Vreni, for you. How to capture leads from appearing on a podcast. Now I could make this a very simple, short answer. But I will not, because there's things that lead into that. But the number one thing that you can do to ensure that you can extract leads from a podcast is to be a great guest. is to be a great guest. Why I say that is you're not going to, because most likely the podcaster doesn't even have to know who is actually listening or who downloaded it later. Most of us, God, we love it. Most of us podcasters and videocasters and interviews and MCs, we would love, love, love to have the contact information and the, information about our listeners, but we don't. But what I have found, and I'll give you an example of why I know this, but what I have found is if you are a great guest and you really focus on providing style, personality, as well as value, meaning tips and advice and suggestions, and you make it about them, not about you. The work is for them. It's not your work that's going to benefit you. Even if you do a plug at the end of it, you promote something, you still want to make it about them. And so if you're a great guest and you give a lot of value, then, and the podcast you're appearing on has an audience, then most likely someone's going to reach out. Now, they may not reach out and say, hey, I listened to your program. They may. I get that quite often, but they may not. But they may join, link in with you or link in with you on Facebook or your Instagram or some other, without necessarily calling out that they listened to your podcast, because a lot of people listen to a lot of different podcasts. So don't stress over and don't focus on whether or not you're going to get leads from it. Focus on really delivering a great appearance for both the podcaster, the host, as well as for the audience. And you will be surprised that people will kind of all of a sudden start connecting with you. Now, of course, I've had that. I've had my podcast for 12 years, and I've been on hundreds of radio shows and podcasts over the last 12 years. So I've had people, certainly reach out and say, hey, I heard you on whatever show, and you were great, so forth and so on. But I've also had, gotten clients from it by just them saying that they, caught me somewhere and they started looking into me, and they joined my LinkedIn or my Facebook page, and they, just spent time getting to know me, and then they eventually reached out. But especially over the last, I would say 3 or 4 months, I'm getting a lot of other podcasters who want me to be on their show because they heard me on someone else's show. So there's a lot of opportunity that you'll have, Vreni, and anybody out there. A lot of opportunity to kind of get further branding and further visibility as a result of you being on one or many podcasts. Now, of course, the more podcasts you can be on, the greater exposure and the greater reach, as they call it, you will have, because depending upon this one podcast that you'll be appearing on, if I was on one Tuesday, and they have a very small audience. But me, especially if Vreni does, me, I'm not into quantity as much as quality. Now, some people might say, well, you're an idiot. You should be concerned about quantity. No, I'm more interested in quality. So, and I would tell you, as your coach or anyone's coach, that even when it comes to your clients, it's not quantity, it's not the money, it's the quality of the client, because not all money is good money. Not all leads are good leads. All right. So the way you're going to capture leads from appearing on the podcast is really going to be about giving a great appearance with some great value, making it about the audience of how, whatever it is you do or whatever it is you're, not offering from a sale perspective, but whatever you're giving during that discussion is of great value to the listeners. Okay. All right. Who's saying thank you? Is that Crystal? Oh, that was Vreni. You're very welcome, Vreni. But I'm very excited for you. And you make a great, because, those of you in my Powerhouse Mavericks group and or across Facebook know that Vreni's been highlighted in my group to showcase her line process, her art process. It's Vreni Wrangley Art. And yes, I love promoting my clients and my network. So, check her out. But if anyone else has any other questions, because those were the three I had, and I'm going to look across and see, because like I said, we're broadcasting across various platforms. And I would not want to miss anybody if you all of a sudden did post a question or a challenge that you might be having. I love my hearts that I'm getting. Thank you very much. You are very welcome. I love doing this. So we're going to be doing these coaching power hours every Thursday at 1 o'clock going forward. So at any point in time, you have a question, you have a story, you have a challenge, don't hesitate to DM me on Facebook or send it through LinkedIn, or reach out to me directly at Bernadette Boas at ballofireinc.com. And I will certainly be sure to get back to you directly. But then I would definitely bring them here, and you have the opportunity to come here as well. And anyone, I should mention this now, should you even want to come on camera while while I'm here and we can talk together about whatever it is that you're dealing with, then all you need to do is post that in the comment section, and I'll get you the link back in the comment section, and you can jump on camera with me. How's that? I mean, I know some people don't like to be on camera, but if not, then anytime while I'm here, you just post it in the comment section. And like Vreni, like Crystal, I don't necessarily see their name and profile. And if you want me to, then either put it in the comment section or give StreamYard approval for me to see you. And if not, then I'm more than happy to still address your question or challenge without you kind of making yourself visible. That's fine too, just like what I did today. So anyway, let me just make sure. One last look. I just would hate to hang up on somebody. All right. So until next Thursday at 1 o'clock, I will see you out on Powerhouse Mavericks and LinkedIn and across the platforms. But should you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye.